Miente, it's Tuesday, April 8th, and I slept badly last night. It's not really new for me to sleep badly, especially since the last election, but I kept having to remind myself why I chose to become a lawyer. I left Cameroon at 14 and I went to New York, went to high school in the US, went to college, and then I made a decision to go to law school and to become a lawyer. If you know a little bit about the education system in francophone countries, you know that, you study law immediately after high school and, you go through a different process. In America, yes, many colleges, they have free law. But one of the wonders of the American system, which I love, was that you get to study something else before having to go to law school and studying the law. And that was one of the things that I enjoyed, in America, was the fact that I got to enjoy college, being able to do my writing, being able to have a double major in political science and philosophy, reading other stuff before going to law school. But me and I knew, you know, even then, that writing was my passion. I was a writer, and I knew that it was going to be one of the things that I was going to do, write books. But I also felt that given my family background, given who my dad was, Victor Fotso, one of the wealthiest men of Africa, that I needed more, that I needed another tool beside writing to be able to protect myself in case shit happened, and shit did happen, and to be able to protect my dad, life work, and myself, and my rights as an African disabled woman, as an African physically challenged woman. I knew, Miente, that I needed the law. I knew that I needed the law, that being a writer wasn't enough. And I felt that, given your independence, given that you know how to yap, that you love to yap, that you love to talk, and that you have a big mouth, you have to go to law school to know the rules of the game and to be able to protect yourself in case you get into trouble. So, Miante, I go to law school. I'm sensing that I need to know the rules of the game. That is one of my reasons to go to law school. And the second thing is that I know that to make a living out of writing is very, very difficult. So I'm thinking, okay, let's have this backup thing. Let's go to law school. Then you know that we can earn a living and find a way to balance the two. So I went to law school basically, one, to know the rules of the game. Two, because I knew America is the country where the rule of law matters, which is not the case in Cameroon. That's never been the case. People know that in Cameroon, it's always who you know. In other systems, in other countries, you may say the same things, but in Cameroon and many African countries, it's always who you know. Even when you're a lawyer, great lawyers, it's always the case, sure, but it's more the case in Cameroon. Is who you know. Your network tell people who you are and how good you are at your job. Very, very influential lawyers know they're part of the system. They know who to talk to when their clients have a problem. They know how to basically convince. Most of the time, politicians, judges, it's not the same system in America. There's always been this sense that the law mattered, that the law mattered, that even when the politics were terrible. I remember when George W. Bush got elected. Yeah, there was an uproar. As a liberal person, I felt, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, but never did I feel like, this is changing America. Yeah, of course. There was 9/11. There was the extrajudicial killing, under George W. Bush, Obama, and anybody else. But still, you felt that there were some foundations there, that the foundation of America was still great, and that the law mattered. Even when it was murky, that the law mattered. So yesterday, when the US Supreme Court basically allowed the Trump administration to leave Kilmar Garcia out of the country, even though he was deported illegally without any reasons, the Trump administration admitted that Kilmar Garcia was deported illegally. But now, he's in, this guy who's been in the US since he was 16 years old, who was given the permission to stay by a judge in 2019, was deported, and he's probably going to remain out of the country because now that he was deported, the Trump administration is basically arguing without giving any evidence that he's a gang member. So, yeah, of course I relate. I came to the US when I was 14. I studied in America. I looked at this and I'm thinking, if you're Kilmar Garcia, what do you do? If you are his family, what do you do if the law no longer protects you? It's not about asking for exceptional treatment. That's the thing with the American system. You don't have to look to politicians to get justice. In my podcast yesterday, I talked about Diane Yangwo. She's a young Cameroonian woman who was killed by her husband in November of 2023. This is not extraordinary in Cameroon. It's not unusual to have a man kill his wife in Cameroon. It happens too often. And the justice system doesn't really, I'm not going to say give a damn, but it's not one of those crime where you know that you're gonna, get a lot of jail time. It isn't. It happens all the time. Men beat their wives in Cameroon all the time. Cameroon, abortion is illegal. Women can't really ask for a divorce. Only the men can ask for a divorce. So stuff like that, women automatically take the name of their husband. The man is at the head of the household. So in the case of Jen Yango, her husband, the father of her 3 kids, kills her. November 2023. He goes to jail, but he was freed last week because a judge, even though he was sentenced to 5 years, basically said, okay, you've done enough time and you can get out. And he got about 52,000 from Cameroonian francs to pay for what he did. And there has been an uproar. And yesterday in my French podcast, I was saying that, yeah, that's very, very normal in Cameroon. That the Cameroonian judicial system is just a reflection of the Cameroonian societies. This is not unusual. In Cameroon, women are not the equal to men. And when you're a married woman, you belong to your husband. And your family is going to tell you that even when he beats you, there's nothing worse than being a divorced woman. There's nothing worse than to be a single woman of a certain age. There's nothing worse, than those 2 things for a woman. The woman, Diane Yangwo, who was killed, she went to this TV show where she was taking very, very conservative viewpoints, which is not a problem, but it just shows you that she was not one of those liberated Western women. She was thinking that it was her role to give her 3 kids a father and that she had to do her best to make sure that he still wanted to be married to her. That was basically what she was saying. There were 3 other women who were unmarried. They had kids and often kids from different fathers. And she was saying, but what are you guys doing? There is no perfect man. So you have to deal with the man as he is and do your best so that he remains the father of your kids. The uproar is kind of, to me, it's an election year in Cameroon. I don't think there's no sincerity here. In Cameroon, there's no separation of powers. So there's no way that the judge, even if she's a woman in this case, could make such a decision without orders from her boss. There's no way. But people were acting like, because they don't want to deal with the main problem, which is that Cameroon has a woman problem. Cameroon has a woman problem that it isn't addressing. And Cameroon, of course, has a justice problem because there's no way you can get justice in Cameroon without playing the political game. There's no way. I know this because I've talked to you, about my dad case, which is an international case, but there's no way I'm ever going to be able to get justice by not playing the political game and trying to make sure that this starts to matter politically. Kilmar Garcia, and immigrated to the United States at 16, has been living a normal life. Sure, the life for an undocumented immigrant, but no trouble with the law. This accusation that he's a gang member there's no proof of that, you know. Unlucky for him, he gets picked up by ICE, by the immigration police in the United States, and now he's in El Salvador jail. It's gonna be very, very, very difficult for him to come back, given the politics in the United States. It's gonna be very, very, very difficult for Kilmar Garcia to come back. His only chance is that by, I don't know, something magical happens. I don't see it, so I can't even imagine. Maybe 4 years from now, if something changes, if there's a democratic administration, but even then, my sense, my fear is that his American life is over. Sure, he has an American family. I hope that they don't give up, but it's going to be very, very, very difficult. I don't see it. How does it happen? It's going to take years. And I think his life, I'm just heartbroken for the guy. Diane Yangwo. There's no way. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for her husband to be put back in jail. It's going to be very, very difficult. And even if he is, I don't see it. How? You know, they're going to say, okay, we made a mistake. But look at where we are in the world. 2 countries, America, Cameroon. You go to, you go to law school because you want to know the rules of the game and because you don't like uncertainty when it comes to those matters. You feel that ideology matters, but it shouldn't be the main factor when it comes to the legal system. It shouldn't be. And you also feel that it shouldn't be arbitrary. The law, the rules should matter. And politics shouldn't have this much importance, this much influence on the judicial system. Politicians shouldn't be able to put their hands on those type of cases. You're going to tell me, Christelle, you are so naive. It was always the case. I'm not going to say to you, no, I'm not going to deny that, but I'm going to say to you, listen, appearance matter, and that it has never been this obvious, and that even when it is very, very, very fragile, the sense that the law matters is important. The rule of law matters. Sure, in America, there's always been controversy over decisions, but not to this extent. What is the message that the United States is sending by allowing a tragedy as the one of Kilmar Garcia? What's the point? Sure, okay, illegal immigration, sure. But this man has a family in America. He has been in the United States since he was 16. A judge gave him the permission to stay. He was illegally deported. Even the Trump administration is saying that they made a mistake, that they deported him by mistake. But now they're basically saying, we're not bringing him back because he's a member of a gang, and they're not even offering any proof. If you are Kilmar Garcia, you find yourself, as many Africans do, many Cameroonians do, when they have in front of them a judicial system which is ruled by politics. Your lawyers don't know what it can change. They know that it depends on the politics here. The law here becomes secondary. In Kilmar Garcia's case, in Diane Yangwo's case, the rule of law no longer really matters. Secondary. Okay. The rule of law becomes secondary to public opinion, politics, and everything else. And what do you do if you're a member of their family? So that's one of the reasons, Miente, why my sleep was terrible last night. I kept thinking, where is the world going to? The economy. Money come and goes. What is happening with stocks around the world is secondary. Money, to me, is secondary. than the values, not just of the Western world, but of the world for the last 50 years. Even when Cameroon wasn't really being a country where the rule of law mattered, it was at least acknowledged that it should be that way. Now that the US, the America, the shiny city on the hill is becoming like Cameroon, where people, strong men, are more important than the law. I don't know. I feel for Kilmar Garcia. I feel for Kilmar Garcia and his family. I feel for Diane Yangwo and her family. Man, in what world are we living? The law is going to be secondary to politics and to public opinion. The two are tied together because politicians follow public opinion more often than not. So I slept badly because I was thinking of two people, Kilmar Garcia and Diane Yangwo. I don't know what is going to happen to Kilmar Garcia, but I'm not very, very optimistic. He may one day come back, but it's going to be very, very difficult. And the kids of Diane Yangwo, huh, I don't see how Cameroon fixes this because it's not willing really to address its women problem and the fact that women are second-class citizens. They have to be mothers, they have to be wives, and that's it. And they are owned by their husband and by their family when they're not married. Yes, Miente, dark times are ahead. Tell me if you like the episode, Miente. You can write to me, contact@fotso.org. Follow the channel. See you Thursday, Miente.